Hello and welcome to Enterprise Unleashed, business law and innovation with experienced business strategist and trial attorney, Richard P. Corey. Nicknamed the Closer, Richard prides himself on striving to maximize his clients' desired outcomes in both transactional business deal negotiations and litigation settings. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is the universal application of legal reasoning, what every entrepreneur must know. Richard, welcome back.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great. I didn't scare you away after the first one. I'm glad you made it back here.
I had some fun. I'm ready to do it again. Let's do it.
Awesome, right? That's great. I love that. I love the go get 'em attitude. That's your whole thing, right?
Yes, sir.
You believe it's crucial for entrepreneurs, especially those without a legal background, to understand fundamental principles of legal reasoning. Why is it that you feel that way?
Absolutely. Well, when you go to law school, I said this in the last episode, really what you do is you learn how to learn, accelerate your learning capacity. You learn to identify whatever laws, statutes, rules, regulations, whatever is needed. You learn to identify, understand, and comprehend everything that is required to accomplish whatever objective you're trying to do. What the art of legal reasoning does, what this academic discipline does, is it turns its pupils into creatures of strategy. You really learn how to take a strategic approach to everything you do, which results in lowering transactional risks. I think I said that before too, but I can't harp on that enough, where taking a strategic approach to something that you would otherwise wing it and combining that maximizes the likelihood of getting the desired result you want. So if we're talking about an entrepreneur, really what we're talking about is a person who is setting out to rise up upward social mobility in a capitalistic world. It's really a system of meritocracy. And an entrepreneur is somebody who wants to grow their business and they, hire other people and continue to expand on what they do and what they love. And the only way to do that is to apply a really strategic approach, understanding the fundamental elements, not of the law, but the fundamental elements necessary for you to be successful in this endeavor.
How can this impact day-to-day business decisions for an entrepreneur?
Well, you take a strategic, calculated approach to everything you think, say, and do. You will start understanding and finding yourself doing the things that need to get done more effortlessly. In other words, if you need to work on organization for your practice or organization for your business, by understanding what it's going to take to be the most organized and implementing those procedures, that you just accomplish the goal. People think that understanding the law is limited to just being an attorney, but it's not. It's universally applicable. By understanding and accelerating your learning capacity and being able to just break down the fundamental elements of whatever the strategic goal is, continue to break those down. Then you just reverse engineer that stuff and accomplish, execute, and that's how you get it done.
And can you kind of break down some of the most essential legal concepts that you believe every entrepreneur should understand?
I've talked about this before, and the most essential is the IRAC equation. It's an acronym for the issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. Every law, no matter if it's criminal law, civil law, every statute, anything regarding the governance of people is made up of a set of rules, a set of elements. So for example, for breach of contract, the elements that you must prove are a binding and enforceable agreement, a breach of the agreement, and damages. This plus this plus this equals breach of contract. So are we talking about breach of contract here? Or are we talking about understanding the elements necessary to prove the case? So we're talking about proving the case, but let's change it to making a successful podcast. What will that require? Well, to do a successful podcast, we need to do this, 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 and this. Well, how do we do that? How do we do this? Continue to break that down. And that's the art of legal reasoning that will give me the roadmap on how to execute doing this podcast and maximizing our viewers and continuing to grow and really ultimately increasing the likelihood of the success that we're striving to achieve right from the get-go.
So millions of dollars. That's my goal. So how are we going to get there, Richard? We got to get there. That's my goal.
Well, everyone's goal is to have money. But here's the thing. You have to if your dream isn't bigger than yourself, there's something wrong with your dream. Now, I didn't say that. That's Deion Sanders. But Coach Prime.
I'm in Colorado. I'm 20 minutes from Boulder, so I know Coach Prime well.
Oh, yeah. So
not on a personal level, but I know he's everywhere around here.
Like if you say I want to be a millionaire, I want these, that's all selfish. It's all about me. If you say, I want to be in a position to where anyone I love, anyone I care about is good. They don't have anything to worry about. I want to be in a position where I could do good for the community. I want to be in a position. Now you're not even the benefit to you is incidental to the benefit of the greater good or the society. But to accomplish that, what do I need to have? Millions of dollars. It's the same end result, but now it's no longer about me. It's about something that's greater.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Now I'll make a note of that so I can get my my millions of dollars. When it comes to like the nitty gritty, like the contracts and things like that, like what are some of the mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make when they're looking at things like contracts, liability, regulatory compliance, like all that sort of stuff that we have to really get into?
The most important thing when you're starting out is having the right contracts in place. People think, oh, this is my friend. I'm going into business with them. There's nothing to worry about.
Right.
And let me tell you something. When you're starting a new business, one of two things happen. You either don't make money and then everybody fights, or even worse, you do make money and then everybody fights. Unless you have all of your relationships, you have your equity positions, you have your obligations and your shares all worked out prior to with a well-written contract. Can't cut corners with that. In fact, a lot of the more complicated issues that I've dealt with in my career all revolved around people going in with what they thought was going to be a really nice relationship with their business partner, and they sign a ambiguous or one of those like rocket lawyer contracts for their partnership agreement.
Yep. For
As
the
ambiguity.
operations agreement. Yeah.
And it's
Mhm.
the ambiguities in those agreements that 100% of the time are the ones that are going to come back and bite you. That's going to be the foundation of your business. Without a good foundation, what can you not do? Grow. So, and it really starts with your agreements in place. Example, somebody's working on a film or a recording artist. They're in the studio making a record. If they don't have contracts with every person who touches that record, everything from the music producer, the audio engineer, any studio musicians, what's going to happen is once they release the record and the publishing starts coming in, these people will get letters from attorneys asking for their piece of the pie. If they don't have those independent contractor work for hire agreements in place or the producer agreements in place, you're setting yourself for a problem. Always.
So you're saying I shouldn't keep drafting contracts on ChatGPT? Is that a bad idea?
It's a bad idea. Well, I mean, look, artificial intelligence is phenomenal. I mean,
Of
the
course. Yeah.
leaps in innovation and technology that we've seen in the last couple of years is nuts. Makes my job a lot easier. But there is no replacement for somebody sitting down and structuring an agreement specifically to the transaction and to the need of the client, the individual, or the corporation at issue.
When it comes to liability, how can entrepreneurs assess and manage potential risks that might impact their business operations?
Well, risk management is the core foundation of starting a business. You need to know what your risks are and how to manage them. I've seen done is really getting back to learning and understanding what is your business, who and why is your business. Starting with that, starting with a belief, and then building upon, expanding upon that, and continuing to break things down and understand each like sub element of the transactional risk. And as you do that, you will also start identifying ways to minimize it. So you maximize your efforts towards the minimization of obstruction, then you maximize the likelihood of having lower transactional risk. I mean, that's a word salad, but if you think about it, it's absolutely true.
What are some of the key agreements that entrepreneurs need to consider when they're scaling, when they're bringing in new partners, investors, or even employees? If someone doesn't have an employee yet, like what do people have to think about?
It depends on the nature of your business. The contracts, the types of contracts you need go back to the risk management factor that we were just talking about. What exactly are we trying to protect here? If it's a social media influencer and they're working with some kind of management company or they're doing brand ambassador stuff for some brand, they got a brand deal. What we want to do in that particular case is make sure that the influencer continues to own their intellectual property. They continue to own the content that they're providing for the benefit of someone else. Or if they're not, how much are they going to get paid for it? So who owns the copyrights? Who gets the distribution rights? What happens if somebody takes like your name, your image, your likeness without your permission and monetizes that? There's a lot of different agreements that come into play, whether it's work for hire agreements, confidentiality agreements, non-compete agreements. It's all really specific to the particular transaction at hand. So when you're talking about scaling a business, all right, so an asset purchase agreement, some of the main things that I always look for are, what are the liabilities of this company? What are we buying? Like, let's say I represent the buyer and I'm drafting an agreement for somebody to sell us their assets. I want to have them make certain representations and warranties in a contract. I don't care what we talk about at dinner, at the bar where we're doing a handshake and, yeah, this is going to be great. No, I want to have them make express representations and warranties based that are governing the health of their business, the quality of their employees, the lack of litigation. You don't want to go and buy something and then you find out that, oh, wow, these people have been under investigation by the regulatory body for whatever this business is for failing to comply with whatever. Now all you're doing is buying a problem. So you need to take the time in these agreements to really understand the transactional risk and implement that by structuring the contract specifically to what needs to be protected and what needs to be accomplished.
So when you work with somebody, you kind of work with their company throughout their process, throughout their growth, throughout their scaling.
Well, most of the way, I guess it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my biggest clients have been with me for a long time. I represent a lot of high net worth individuals or national companies, or typically both. And yes, I do handle everything from their growth transactions to their litigation. As you scale upward, the cost of doing business always increases. You've heard the saying, more money, more problems. And it's true. Also, as you grow your business, you're never going to need less money than you do now. 10 years ago, when I first started out, I didn't have the overhead I have now from running in other words, as you grow, you're going to need more and more. You're going to have to take into consideration things that you may not have had to consider prior to.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Cause like everyone wants to scale, or not everyone, but most businesses want to scale, but scaling comes with a lot more need. Like you said, need for more finances, need for more contract, need just for more aspects of your business to grow.
Also, you want to take into consideration too, what's your exit strategy? What's your end goal? So that's going to dictate a lot of what's happening here.
That's true.
The nature of the industry that you're in. I work with a lot of physicians, so buying and selling practices. And you want to go in, you want to look at the terms of a lease. Someone may have a beautiful practice, a wonderful practice, and the P&Ls look great. It's going to be a wonderful, like, lucrative opportunity. The problem is they only have 2 years left on their lease.
Right.
So in taking that into consideration, what is going to be the cost associated with the lease renewal, where there's no longer a cap on the annual rental rate of, like, let's say, a lot of times leases will say, well, each year it can only rise by 4%. Well, once that lease ends and the landlord comes in and they want market rent, which may be a 20% increase, you have no idea. You have to take that into consideration, and that also becomes leverage in negotiating the purchase price.
Considering the fact that the needs change over time, we talked last episode about your kind of unique approach, your kind of your outlook of anything. How do you coach your clients to be able to scale and do it effectively?
I have to take a unique approach to each client. Did you ever play sports growing up?
Definitely, lots of them.
I played football, ran track, but on the football field, there's certain players that respond better to more positive, constructive criticism. When the coach gets down their throat for doing something, they start like overthinking things. That's when they're jumping off sides. That's
right. Yep. Throwing picks. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then there's other players where they can take that kind of criticism. So you have to look at how to coach each individual client. I do that on an individual basis. What are the needs of the client? What is going to be the most effective way to assist this client? What's going to be the most effective way to accomplish what this client has entrusted in me to do? And that takes analytical thought, hence why I keep going back to the need and not need, just the complete universal application of legal reasoning, because there's a strategy to everything. When you really look at it from that way, you start understanding things on these fundamental levels. Like, all right, for me to really reach this client, if I talk to them the way I would talk to this person, that's not going to be effective at all. But for us to get this accomplished, or let's flip it. If I'm speaking on behalf of a client, I'm trying to settle a case or settle a dispute. If I come in sometimes like a bulldog, all I'm going to do is piss people off.
Right.
It's sometimes you got to finesse it. Then there's other times where you have to come in as aggressive as possible. You have to
That's the only way they're going to understand what you.
you have to understand it. You can't just be a one trick pony. You have to take a calculated, strategic approach to this, and that's how you maximize the likelihood of accomplishing what you want to do.
Do you ever get entrepreneurs who are just like kind of like, I don't know about this whole legal reasoning thing, whatever, dude?
Not really.
No.
No,
Yeah,
I think see, I'm very lucky. I'm blessed where the people that I work with are excited about talking how to better their business minds, how to
Sure.
sharpen their business skills.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that really that resonates with people because we're sharing something in common. Where I'm an entrepreneur myself, so this is something that we have in common that resonates with each other. So why wouldn't they listen? Why wouldn't I listen to them? I learn from my clients all the time. In fact, every single day, and which makes me better and more effective at what I do because I'm able to take what I learned from this person who grew a company from having a wrench in the back of his truck to now having 500 employees, and I have the opportunity to represent them. A lot of times, the best thing I could do is just shut up and listen.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, because sometimes people already have they don't need as much coaching, so you can just listen to them and help them build from there.
Well, I like the clients that don't need as much coaching because that means I can just get to work and do what I need to do. I don't have
Sure.
to
Sure.
the babying. No, I shouldn't use the word babying. That sounds bad. But I would much rather just be free to go get done what I need to do on my terms instead of having to explain things over and over again. But that's why I like working with entrepreneurs because typically their response to all right is, "Hey, Rich, just get it done. Go, go, go. Like whatever." And they'll have enough respect for what I do to listen when I say this is what we need to do.
Yeah, that makes sense, Ben. But you do have a knack for. I can already tell you have a knack for helping the newbies too.
Oh, I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
love it. It's honestly my purpose is to represent the idea of infinite possibility. Let's do it. I love when somebody comes to me and they have an idea for a business, and I'll challenge them. I really
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Why don't you understand this? What statutes are associated with you becoming a booking agent? How do you not know that? What do you like for you to be a successful agent? You need to understand this inside and out. But I mean, I don't say it in a condescending way, but I love those types of conversations because once you start getting those wheels turning, then now they're taking action. Now they're taking more steps towards their ultimate goal. You don't need to see the full staircase to take the first step.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now they're taking these steps, and what was once miles away, what's something that was a dream, as you get closer to it, let's say you're swimming towards an island. Maybe it's an impossible feat, but after you take the couple steps or you swim the couple feet, you're getting closer and closer. Now it's becoming more real. And as it becomes more real, you're putting more effort into achieving the reality. And as you do that, it becomes a cyclical effect. And that's what results in being a successful entrepreneur.
I love it. I love the approach. I think that it's my kind of approach, and I think it's very valuable for a lot of people. So thank you very much for talking that through with us again. And thank you for tuning in to Enterprise Unleashed, Business Law and Innovation with Richard P. Corey. To connect with Richard, visit rcenterpriselaw.com. And please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We love having you be a part of our community. Richard, I loved having you here. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I had fun today.